Nole Nation, welcome into another episode of the Renegade Rundown, your favorite Florida State football podcast with myself, George, owner of renegadereport.substack.com and at the Renegade Report right here on YouTube. And as always, my beautiful and lovely partner right here at the Renegade Report, Jen Santee, aka Jen Knoll 2013, and you can find her at Jen Santee 1890 on X, and of course as Jen Santee on all the platforms. How are we doing, Jen? It's like Christmas. We got a brand new filing to dig into.
We do. It's been a great couple of days. Or I mean, when did it file? It was not last night, it was the night before, right? Wednesday night?
You got me. I want to say it was like in the middle. Yeah, it was like Thursday in the wee hours of the morning. It was literally midnight Wednesday night. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
counted
it
as
was.
yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm good. I feeling a little under the weather, but no big deal.
Yeah, we were supposed to have Danielle Kelly on with us, and she's sick. She's down under the weather, so she couldn't make it. So we hope she gets to feeling better very soon. As Jen kind of mentioned, she had food poisoning. So apparently she was out in the fruit market or something and just grabbed some
Yeah.
random fresh fruits and maybe didn't get them washed off good enough or something. What happened?
I put them in a smoothie. I didn't think it would be. I mean, I washed them. I put them in a smoothie. That's what it is. I mean, that's
Something
the only thing
got
I
you.
can think of. Yeah.
There's no telling
But
these
it's okay.
things.
I'm still here. I didn't have to miss any time.
Like I was saying, it's probably the best thing for you for your immune system. Healthy as an ox. But yeah, the big thing with this latest filing, again, it was Florida State responding to the ACC's amended filing here in Florida in the Leon County court system. It goes back, and not to toot me and Jen's horn, but it's what we've kind of been telling you guys from the beginning. When these other schools start filing suit, when they start joining in, when they start adding language to their filings, it's going to change everything. And we go back to when Clemson initially filed in South Carolina. They referenced Florida State's case over and over again. Like, okay, that's how they're going to play this. The judge is going to allow this. Nothing was made of it. It was, totally called for. So now, and I'm curious what your initial opinion. We'll give our initial kind of responses when we first got the new filing. The first gut feeling, the first thing that came to my mind is, okay, they took and read Clemson's filing with a fine-tooth comb, and they adjusted their language kind of, on the basis of how the judge reacts in Clemson's best arguments. So you get a kind of change in how the FSU was, just in case if we were to. Now it's more like, guys, we're getting the hell out of here. How long is it going to take? What's it going to cost? Because it's not a question of when or if FSU gets out. It's well, I guess it is a question of if. It's not when, but if. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, I think their wording was interesting. I think they said when we get out. I think they still haven't officially, I guess, filed their leaving officially. I don't know if an amendment in Leon County counts as that, but maybe it does. I mean, the ACC likes to pick and choose what they want to count as
Who knows
material
how
and
they'll take it.
non-material. Yeah, so non-material information could lose you millions of dollars, and they think that's a-okay. So cool beans. But I liked their wording. Of course, for me, because I just want out of this clown show. I don't think there's anything good that can come out of it. I think this is going to be over here pretty soon. I think it's going to be over a lot quicker than people think. I think that I'm now kind of backing off maybe a little bit that the ACC is going to explode. Tell me what you thought about that North Carolina meeting, because
first of all, I want to say thank you to Mike Bartz. He says, hey, go Noles, Big Ten getting closer. And he has been with us for 3 months as a paid member, donated all kind of memberships. We sure appreciate you. And Spear Addicts Media says, all I will say is it's almost over. And we always appreciate Chris joining in. No, I agree. I started to say, no, that doesn't count as us, publicly saying we're leaving the conference or whatever the stuff in the lawsuit, but then your immediate next comment, yeah, who knows how the ACC will take
Yeah,
it? Who knows how
that's
they
the
will
issue.
define
Yeah.
things?
Hmm.
And that's another thing within this filing, and we'll read kind of some of the statutes in it, maybe the introduction, the background issues in it here in a little bit. But that's another thing, they spell out the language. Like, look what we figured out in this North Carolina court. This reasonably, what is it called? Reasonable measures that the ACC was trying to say gave them the right to sue FSU preemptively before they even had their board of trust meeting. And then, oh, well, the judge says, well, I'm not sure that's what it means. Can you send me a definition? And then it's a different one, and then a different one. I guess I could show that video again in a little bit, but yeah, we even showed a clip on here, literally where the judge discussed it in the North Carolina courtroom. They literally had 3 different terms for it. So FSU again spells that out in this. It's the days are numbered, but they really, really hammered the sunshine laws. How the ACC wants to just give this one part to a judge. Oh, well, you only need this couple sentences, and this sentence it's right there, but it's not going to happen. There's going to be discovery, and it seems like every week it's just to get back to the original point. Every filing that gets made, it just sharpens the case for the opposition, and the ACC, they're just keep going back to the well. And it speaks to their confidence, not just the fact that Clemson came out so strong with their kind of wording. You just know, and as we've alluded to, as Chris has alluded to, FSU's got some real grenades. And as more schools come in, and it's just going to get worse and worse for the ACC. I think the kind of narrative, here's a question for you. What do you think about the national narrative that people, even some, people we like Fluger, I know you watch his show a lot. There's more people who aren't so much on the FSU side seem to really think there's a chance that FSU is going to get stuck in the ACC. Like, it's not some kind of given that they're going to get out and get to a Big Ten or stuff, which we feel that the different. What do you think? Do you think is it just going to take the judge coming out and voting in our favor for people to kind of get the picture, or are you still just as confident as ever?
I guess I haven't seen that from the Flugar show. I think that show has always been that they're going to get out really no matter what happens. I don't think, I maybe I missed something. But I think that Florida State's not going to get stuck. They're not going to get stuck. They're leaving the ACC. It's a matter of how much and when. Sorry.
Well, it's about that. People are under the impression, maybe it was just a single tweet. He was just asking a question. I love Fluger. He does good. That's what I'm saying. But it just seems like people get hung up on that 2036 date. And they take the ACC's word for it, and the Nationals media, they cover it that, oh no, FSU signed up through 2036. They signed up through 2036, but that didn't happen. And that is a hypothetical that will never happen in a million years. Okay.
Yeah.
They have till February of 2025 to re-up their contract with ESPN. So at this point, where we're at now, ESPN knows for a fact, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, 2028, whatever the case may be, FSU and Clemson are leaving. So short of the ACC coming to FSU and Clemson and say, look, we'll give you 30% each, and the rest of us can split it up, that's their only shot. And another thing that's also been pointed out in the litigation by ACC themselves is that at the very least, you can pay your way out. And we've had people on this show. We've had Bill Farley from his, awesome Substack. We've had TJ Altimore. We've had all kind of different people. We've talked about it with Chris and James. The finances are there, on up to $500 million plus, whatever you want to look at it. They've got the position. They've got the leverage. They've got all the different things through Project Osceola and different things. It's not a win, or it's not a if, excuse me. It is a win. It's just a matter of when. Is it 2027? Like, we've talked about worst case scenario, it could be 2027, but this whole notion of ACC owning Florida State till 2036, it's not going to happen. I'm to the point now, I don't think they get a penny for that time period, because you just can't get around the fact that by law said they didn't have the right to do that the way it went down. And again, it's all a theoretical thing. ESPN isn't going to up the contract to a level that would appease a Florida State and a Clemson, no matter what happens. Right. They just know what it's worth. Even just currently, probably, I don't know if it's worth, like the total I don't know if the total right now is worth what it was in 2013 or 2020, whenever the last adjustment on this thing was. Because yeah, Florida State and Clemson are great, but they've never been more divided from the rest of the conference. Because there
Right.
isn't a Pac-12 you can stack yourself up against and say, oh, well, we're the third best conference. We're right there with the SEC and Big Ten. Now it's the SEC and Big Ten, and that's it. And basically, you've got a SEC and a Big Ten team in the ACC, and that's just it's just, it's just not going to work. FSU and Clemson are any 30% of that money, or we're getting the hell out of there. So that's just kind of the part I wanted to point out, is that it's not an if, it's not a, oh well, they may be stuck till 2036. It's not a, oh well, they're going to get out and go to another conference, and ACC is going to get the money till 2036. I guess the point I want to make out, like worst case scenario, it would be through 2027. That 2036, I'll bet my life on it. They're not going to be able to hold that, and again, when you go down to the kind of where the court ruling should take place, if any of that stuff in that grant of rights is legal, that grant of rights also says subject to the laws of the state of where it happens. Yep. And it's home games. So where's Florida State's home games? Where are those again, Jen? Florida, right?
I
yeah,
believe,
Sunshine Laws.
Yeah. I was going to say Massachusetts, but no, I'm kidding. I absolutely agree with you. I think they're leaving. They're leaving. It's a matter of when and how much. And there's that relationship is so fractured. It's so over. And also, I think the relationship with ESPN is over. I think this is over. I know there was a comment in the chat, and we probably would get to it in a second, but I think that kind of goes to with what I said. Hearing that big money from Terry Parker, hearing that big money FSU donors want the SEC. I haven't heard that, but if they do, I think I'm not seeing it. I think that bridge has been burned. I don't know any huge SEC or like big money boosters that would have such an effect that would keep them from, going to the Big Ten or, whatever, if we want to be fair. But I just don't, I think that relationship with ESPN is so fractured. I think the relationship really with the SEC is fractured. A lot of it is fractured here. And sure, we could all like come kumbaya together over money, unless I guess ESPN could get the SEC to bring them in for a full share and pay out their buyout. That would be, seriously, that's the only way I could see this happening.
Say that last point again.
Is if ESPN could could get Florida State to move to the SEC with their buyout being taken care of.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
I just don't see it other way.
Yeah. And like you said, the relationship is to a degree there that it's going to be really hard to get that done. So yeah, I agree 100%. And Spear Addicts Media, our friend Chris Frazier, has been with us for a month as a paid member as well. We appreciate you, brother. 7 to 8 ACC members are about to drop a bomb. So you heard it here first from our guy Chris Frazier of Spear Addicts. Guys, and that's kind of the biggest thing, and that's why I wanted to touch on that first before we got into the specifics of this filing, is that it's not a fair fight for the ACC. There was a long time everybody was scared. It's like when you see a protest, a peaceful protest. Everybody's out there. Maybe they're doing a little hollering or this or that, and then the first person throws a bottle or whatever the case may be. Then the riot breaks out. I was at the 2004 NASCAR race where Jeff Gordon got pelted with beer cans. Like, you've never seen anything like that in NASCAR again. They've scrubbed the footage from the internet, but all it took was one drunk guy to throw that beer can at Jeff Gordon, and you couldn't see the racetrack. Well, that's what the ACC's got with lawsuits right now. Florida State and now Clemson and a North Carolina coming out and making the statements they've made as a North Carolina. And I keep going back to that. There's not any stronger statement. Like the issues, the defendants and, against FSU and the plaintiffs against FSU, these are all like North Carolina graduates or cronies or people that were put in place by North Carolina graduates. So, the Bubba coming out or whatever the hell his name is, kind of flip-flopping and back in Florida State, Clemson filing their suit with such strong words. It's a beautiful thing. And 7, 8 more bombs comes out. I mean, what's the ACC going to do? It's really tricky what's going to happen because it's what, the 29th. We've got about 10 days, which I believe is kind of the precedent in Florida. I don't think the ACC can just like file at the last second. I think you're supposed to give some time. I'm not sure exactly how that works with amendments and stuff. But there's a good chance we don't get anything else. But, you know, between now and then, we're still waiting on pins and needles, if in case you forgot, for the ruling on both the motions in the North Carolina case. So that could drop anytime in this 10 days. We kind of were hoping it would be a little early. It hasn't happened. So it's just a million different ways this things can go, but it just seems like it's just getting worse and worse and worse for our little buddies over there at the ACC. Despite
Yeah.
what Pete Thamel will tell you about Florida State not having a place to land and all that shit.
Well, I mean, again, I've made this response before, and of course, Pete Thamel, who works for ESPN, who ESPN funds the ACC network, who the ACC network guys, y'all can go look at the numbers. Florida State fans watch the ACC network more than any other fan base. That includes Clemson, that includes North Carolina. They lose Florida State on the ACC network, and that thing's gone. So, color me stunned that someone who works for the network, whose ACC network could go kaput if they go somewhere else, says, yeah, they're not really wanted, knowing full well Florida State is not speaking. I mean, the SEC is just not viable for them right now. So, again, I'm really surprised by Pete Thamel's statements. Not really. These are the same people that said they didn't want Florida State out before Jordan was hurt. It was only because Jordan was hurt. Yeah. Don't believe your eyes, your ears. We're not hateful. You are hateful. You're awful people. I have no, I don't give a shit about them anymore. ESPN guys are like one of the worst.
It's one of those things. And there's all kind of major public stories about celebrities getting away with things and all kind of shit hitting the fan. It is what it is. It's something you got to deal with, but I just lost my total train of thought.
Nobody gets away with more lies than news anchors and weathermen.
Met weathermen. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's tough. I'm still learning what the meteorology terms mean.
Look, no other profession can you just sit in front of a camera and lie on national TV and be totally fine and then get paid more because of your lies, and you don't even get in trouble for it. No big deal, right? No big deal.
Well, this depends on who you're lying for. If they paid for the show, sponsored by Pfizer or whatever.
Maybe. I'm just saying it's so ridiculous that news anchors, meteorologists, and sports reporters just continue on and do everything that they do. I think sports reporters sometimes are the biggest clickbaitiest people you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, look, hey, we're all guilty of it to a certain degree. And to a certain degree, I can appreciate it from a Fox or ESPN. You've got advertisers, you got this and that. But the one that really hurt me was Greg McElroy, because he kind of presents his show kind of like we present ours. He's just your, college football enthusiast, your college football analyst, sitting in his little studio in front of his camera, talking to his fans, breaking things down. And the entire time he was in that environment, he was pro FSU. It would be an absolute shame. And it's like they bring him into the big desk, tie his hands behind his back, and it's like, oh yeah, Florida State, they should definitely not be in. Put Alabama in. This is the right thing. It's like for 48 hours, and then he comes back to his show in flip flops. He's right back there with it. And we've talked about Kirk ad nauseum, but he's still, as much as we don't matter, he still can't help but try to win back our friends.
I don't think he's trying to win back anything. He's trying to make himself look good. I think this is more of a guilt trip. Maybe Kirk's a Catholic. I say this because I'm a Catholic. We apologize for everything. We're guilty all the time. I feel like he's going to walk around with this guilt. I wish it on him. Continue with the guilt, Kirk. I don't feel bad for your guilt. You should. You sold your soul. And that's fine. And actually, I think Kirk sold his soul a long time ago. So I don't think that this really was the catalyst for his selling of his soul. He's so, to me, the worst thing, it's not even Kirk. The worst interview I saw, and it didn't even get the publicity that it should have, was Chris on his podcast. What's his name? Chris
Cuomo?
Reese. Chris Reese, right? Reese. No,
Reese Davis?
no, it wasn't. Was it Reese Davis?
Chris Fowler?
Maybe. Chris Fowler. No, it was. I don't know. Oh, they both look alike. Which one went to Alabama? Which one went to
I don't know. We just
Colorado?
said like 10 names, so just
I know,
roll with it. If it
Chris
comes to you,
Davis,
well,
anyway, they were on that college football podcast, and he was talking about how they lured Nick Saban to them. What can I do, Nick, to make this better
I wonder.
for you?
I wonder.
How do I usher you in on being? That was the most transparent, disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. And he's just jovial about it. He's laughing about it like it's totally fine that you just ruined college football. No big deal.
Yeah, what could they possibly do to lure him in? I wonder what ESPN could do. Just think.
It was Reese Davis. I thought it was. Okay, it was Reese Davis. I get him and Chris Fowler confused. All white elitist men look alike, so I'm sorry. I got them confused, you know.
Just look like regular white people to me. Yes, they
Chris
are assholes.
Davis and Chris Fowler look a
They
little
are
alike.
assholes.
I was
They do.
saying that.
They
as
have a
being
look.
Funny. Come on.
No, I do. I do this. I do the same thing. Those two are easy to split apart. That's why it's like I don't know. They get on my nerves so bad. Stopped watching college football live a couple of years ago. It's like we're muting that thing if it's on till the Florida State. Every once in a while, like if Norvell comes on there or somebody I know, Jameis I think was on there once. I watched the one when Jameis came on, stuff like that. But besides that, I just can't wait. Hopefully to get to Ireland or at least send somebody with our sign and make sure they give him a taste of his own medicine over there. Because yeah, no love lost here. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think that was actually, it was that and the John Skipper interview that was on Dan Le Batard's show where he was like, I mean,
oh my God, that one pissed me off.
That one was so, both of these, you put them together and it was so ugly. It was so bad. It was so blatant and it was so obvious. And for people to just sit here and call Florida State fans delusional and crazy is obscene because they put this on national radio, on YouTube, on podcasts, on TV, and they were just fine with it and they thought it was funny. And they're like, nobody cares because nobody says anything to us. So it's fine if we lie to you. And by the way, they're not really lying to us. They're lying to everybody else. So y'all be mad about that.
Absolutely. So going back to this filing, I guess we can read the intro for people here. The kind of let's see, it's called the background, but we're going to read this to you right here. The first kind of paragraph in FSU's response to ACC's amended filing here in Leon County. 5 words explain why the motion should be denied. To get to the truth, the sound and fury in 3 different state courts, Florida and the Carolinas, South and North, are largely over lengthy contracts no one, including the courts, has ever seen other than the ACC. The ACC asks these courts construe the terms and conditions of these ESPN agreements, yet expects those courts to take the ACC's words for those terms. That never ends well. Though in its 4th month, the ACC argues the principle of priority requires this proceeding to be halted pending the disposition of the first filed action in North Carolina. In other words, the Florida court should stay and wait for North Carolina to decide how to move forward. And that a discovery stay is also needed until the important threshold of legal questions raised by the ACC are resolved. Also, but most of those threshold of legal questions concern the terms and conditions of the ESPN agreements, with the ACC asking the courts and its members to trust us. But the record thus far demonstrates the extreme hazard of taking the ACC's word for it. And then they get into this part here a little bit into this case. So it's perfectly prudent to play it now. I'm going to play this video for you guys kind of why the ACC isn't to be trusted. And there's already a bit of precedent as you see this kind of take place in the North Carolina court when the ACC decides to do it. And this is that reasonable measures kind of thing about FSU going to sue Florida State without the vote and things of that nature.
In paragraph 126 of their original complaint, the ACC alleged the following as the reason that it had to file this lawsuit. It said, under the ESPN contracts, the conference is obligated to take all commercially reasonable actions to defend the grant of rights and the rights granted to ESPN under those contracts. Then, in its amended complaint, a few weeks later, after it took the alleged vote, the ACC said, being under an obligation to take all commercially reasonable measures, so it changes from actions to measures this time, to protect those rights, the conference filed its complaint. But then in its SIR reply, just filed on Monday in response to our motion to dismiss, as purported justification for why it didn't get the 2/3 vote required by the Constitution, which we already talked about, we got the declaration of James Ryan, the president of the University of Virginia. And he stated the following. Of course, it's under the penalty of perjury because it's a declaration, but he stated, in addition, under the ESPN agreements unanimously approved by the conference in 2016, the conference was obligated to take all commercially reasonable actions, back to actions, necessary to protect the media rights that were provided to ESPN. This contractual obligation and pre-existing authorization in combination with the limited nature of the lawsuit led me to conclude we didn't need a vote. Now, 2 days ago.
Now, there's another minute or so to that, but that was really the main part. Now, I wanted to show you that because literally Florida State quotes that clip, and I thought it was pretty cool. That was the one clip I decided to clip from that courtroom clip that's also up here. You can see the entire North Carolina court hearing on the internet on here on YouTube. We'll put that link up there for you. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty hilarious, how far backed in the corner the ACC is on this, and still kind of, hold that same thing. The heading to that kind of argument in this thing was called mischief. And it basically points, like we were just talking about, to the fact that, they're bonded, they're beholden to do exactly what these ESPN contracts tell them to do. Oh, what does it tell them to do? But they can't tell you. It changes depending on what the ACC needs from you that day. So I thought that was huge. What did you think of that whole kind of them, quoting that and bringing that argument from their case in North Carolina to Florida and really kind of hammering that home with, again, precedent from the North Carolina case? You've got precedent from the Clemson case, wording and terminology from that. You've got precedent from the case in North Carolina. It just seems like Florida State adjusts. And meanwhile, the ACC is just the same. It's going to the same well. It's like they're playing a really risky game, the ACC is, that these judges are going to, rule like it's 2009 or whatever. It's a different world we live in, like Cat Williams said.
It's a huge
sure it's coming out this
world. Yeah, it's a huge different world we live in. There's cameras everywhere. There's social media. There are people that will talk everywhere. You can't keep people quiet like you used to be able to do, right? I mean, these corporations winning, and yes, I'm calling the ACC a huge corporation because they are.
It's a nonprofit, Jen. They're a nonprofit.
If we can stop with that bullshit.
They're trying to make a difference for these student athletes, Jen.
Oh, what difference are they trying to make? Screwing them? Because that's all they've ever done.
Line in their pockets.
I find it I think it's so gross these conferences call themselves nonprofits. I cannot get over that. But that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. For me, I love watching the ACC rattled, and with the lawsuit that happened in North Carolina, when we watched the video and everything like that, the way the ACC lawyers, even though they came in, they were great at the beginning, and then they got rattled. One question, and none of these guys could get on the same page for the rest of the time, pretty much, right? So I think this is smart for Florida State to do this. What I don't see being viable, though, is for the ACC to have all these multiple lawsuits, because that is exactly what it opens the door to, right? It opens the door to other cases. And so I do see, if the ACC wants to continue down this road, they're going to bully their way into a consolidation of lawsuits, I think. We'll see. I hope not, but we'll see. I don't know. I'm so jaded though. I just feel like corporations always win. So it'd be so wonderful to watch the ACC lose. I just think it'll be wonderful to watch them lose. We're not going to get the joy that we want, which is Discovery and ESPN bigwigs and ACC bigwigs going down in email messages to their mistresses. I understand that. I want it too. Okay. I want it too. I just don't see it happening. They're going to settle. Everybody knows it. You know it. I know it. Everybody on the internet knows it. The ACC knows it. It is what it is.
Encyclopedia says they're not run like a huge corporation outside of the corruption part. And yeah, that's the issue. If you're going to run a business, for profit or corruption, then you have a liability, whether you're private, either to your investors, or if you're public, to your shareholders, to increase profits. And that's like every damn quarter increase profits. That's the model in corporate America today. Now that brings its own damn problems. Like, don't get me wrong, we could have a whole conversation, but that ain't what we do here. Now, the ACC, have they done that? Have they tried to increase shit at all? No, they're just trying to hold on by their bootstraps to the way things used to be. It's pretty sad. I mean, and which is illustrated with the whole Raycom situation. If this is your first time joining us, of course, Raycom, our Commissioner John Swofford's son, was at Boston College. We need to get our buddy a job. We'll bring Boston College on and make our to the ACC and make our kid look good. They did that, so he got a job with Raycom. Well, okay, we need to move our buddy up at Raycom. They're in some trouble. Maybe if we keep their company afloat, he can move up. So now the guy's like the VP of Raycom, or he might even be the president by now. They've done merged with CW and everything else. Come to find out, the wife was employed by Raycom in some form or fashion as well. You heard Jen talking about the interview with John Skipper that he did on Dan Lebitard's podcast, whatever, last month or something. And it's pretty funny. He's on there just singing the praises of ESPN and how they would never this, when the whole thing of Skipper getting with Dan Lebitard and Lebitard getting pissed off with ESPN and leaving is because how grimy they are and how nasty and how things have gone the wrong way. And they're going to expose all the ESPN secrets and all this shit. But as soon as it comes time for Skipper to sit there and talk about when he was the head man at ESPN and, what kind of pressure, and oh, no, it was nothing like that. Yeah. Did I know John? Did we go to the same college? Did we meet there to have the business meeting? Yeah, but that had nothing to do. Like, come on, man. Under the swaying pine trees in North Carolina, you made the deal to save Raycom. The SEC becomes, the media's favorite and the national champion for whatever 80% of the past 15 years. All that happens and the ACC goes in the dump, and that's like the one single solitary move you see happen. Like, people have this idea of the SEC of what it is now and what it's been, but like, no, when Florida State was kicking ass all through the 90s, like Bama had their title in 92, Tennessee made it, but it wasn't. Florida State played in like 6 or 7 national championships, and they were in the ACC. You had Ohio State, USC, all these other schools. It wasn't like from 2008 when Saban got to Alabama and Urban Meyer got to Florida. Those were the two big things, and they capitalized on that shit. They got rid of Raycom, and ESPN produced the SEC network. People just don't get it. They see SEC, CBS, these things. They don't realize that, the ACC said, okay, who do we go with? And think about this. This is the worldwide leader back in 2008, 2009, 2010. This was the ESPN that we loved. Like, I grew up on. At that time, I was watching SportsCenter like 3 times a day, and then by the 3rd time, oh shit, we got to wait for midnight SportsCenter because I've seen every play 3 times. Like, that was when ESPN was on, 100 million cable boxes in America. That was a different ESPN. And ACC says, oh, let's go with this hick backwater thing that the SEC just fired. The hick backwater conference, the ones that hired somebody that's actually going to take off, with their conference, a commissioner that gives a shit, but no, we had John Swofford dealing with John Skipper over there and it's like, if you read the story and how everything went down, John Skipper knew he was fucking the ACC, but he was doing his favorite John a solid, whether it was for his family, whatever the reason is, whatever extra discovery we're going to get. because there's discovery, and I know I keep going back to it, but UNC is going to enter this shit. I guarantee you they got something somewhere, some kind of email, some kind of conversation, whether it be from Virginia when they hop in, whoever hops in next. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse, Jen. But I'm here for it. I'm here for all the tea.
Oh, me too. I love it. I think I was listening to, if anybody else, watches podcasts and sports podcasts, the worst one you could possibly watch is the Monty Show. So I do it so you guys don't have to. And I love trolling him because he gets so mad. Like, he gets so mad. But he was talking about how it was liable for Florida State to include John Swofford's family, and it could hurt his. I mean, this shit is crazy. Acting like John Swofford and his Nepo baby kid are just so off limits because they're such great men. I honestly almost threw my phone, away, and then I realized I needed to use it still. But I can't believe there are people that think like this. They're like, I've known great people. I really have. Or known of them. Maybe I haven't known great people. But I don't think I would put John Swofford and his spoiled brat Hunter Biden / kid, in this group of absolutely privileged kids, and I'll put a Trump kid in there too. You know what I mean? I don't mean to be mean. I'm just saying that's the vibe I get from this conversation. It's like, oh, his son's so off limits. His son has never done anything, and you've put him in this position to run a cable company, and he did it into the ground. I don't understand this.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't understand. And then this show was talking about how, oh, this is liable. Florida State should be. I'm like, are you guys? Show me on the doll where they hurt you, please. Show me. Which spot did they touch you improperly, sir? And it's so funny. And I'm guarantee you he probably tried to get into some hot Florida State co-ed's DMs, and she told him no.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it for 1 second. We had a fan ask a question if Florida State would still play Florida and Miami if they got in the Big Ten. I think there's like literally a statute in place in the state of Florida saying Florida has to play Florida State every year.
Yes.
I think that one's safe, especially kind of where it's at the very end of the year. I think that one's safe. I think if there's a chance you lost any of them, it would be Miami. Just kind of, they don't have a stadium. It's going to be really tough, like how you're going to sell getting Miami into that new conference with you, or being in another power conference where you can kind of reasonably schedule them every single year. Because if you're going to schedule, Florida and Miami every year, that's it. No other out of conference games. Which maybe that's all right in the Big Ten because it's such a national conference. You've got Oregon, you've got USC, you've got.
I don't see it. I
don't see them ever moving away from it. It would be a real, people would really come to bat to try to keep that game in play if that happened. And also, Scott June here says, guys, any chance we go to the Big 12?
No.
And Jen, I'll let you take that one. I'm going to put the phone line up here. Seems like people are really wanting to be a part of this conversation. So we're going to open it up to our subscribers and our fans that we love. If you have any questions, you can text them in like you've been doing, or you can also call and get a takeoff live on the Renegade Rundown if you'd like to.
So about the Big 12, I would say no. I don't see them going to the Big 12. I don't think that's a possibility. I don't even unless the SEC and the Big Ten explode and become non-conferences anymore. I don't see that happening. I know this rumor is going around about Florida State going independent. That's not happening either. So I don't. Again, the Big 12 is not happening. The Big 12 for Miami, maybe. Although I do think maybe, and I could see Miami getting the Big 10 invite after all the dust settles with the initial wave. That's where I could see it going. I don't think it's going to be in a huge block. So if Miami goes to the Big 10, I would say I still believe it's going to be 2025 for Florida State to play in the Big 10. I still believe that. I don't think they have any interest in sticking around the ACC. I think this is all going to get worked out before then. However, now with that in mind, I would say 2025 for Florida State, and also maybe one other team. I don't know who that's going to be. So maybe they take Florida State by themselves for 2025, but I don't think it's going to be Miami. And I think Miami will maybe possibly get that nod a couple years later. If that makes sense.
No, I could see that. And I've talked about a lot. Like, look, this thing is going to the Power 2 and then whatever's left. There's going to be a G5, whatever you want to call it, 2 conferences, like a minor league, whether it be ACC and Big 12 or they merge or whatever the case may be. And exactly to Jen's point, Florida State, Clemson, these are the last 2 schools that are like no doubters that are like, you're in. Okay. After Florida State, Clemson get separated, one goes to the SEC, one goes to the Big Ten, both go to the Big Ten, whatever the case may be. Once that happens and you've got these 2 super conferences established, all the new playoff rules go. There's going to be a point in time when people are going to ask, okay, so how come Vanderbilt is eligible for, the 3 automatic buys? How come, not Syracuse, how come Indiana and Rutgers and these smaller teams, like, they should be in over a Miami or a Louisville or a Oregon State or a team that really does try to compete at football, whether they're any good at it or not. They're trying, especially Louisville. Louisville's kind of like the Ole Miss of the SEC right now. They've got momentum.
Going to the Big 12. They're going to the Big 12.
Yeah, that I could see that initially, but at the same time, I don't, because I like the ACC and the Big 12, like whatever it's called at the end. I feel like, in my opinion, it's going to merge, or they're going to be like an AFC and an NFC, just like you have an AFC and an NFC with SEC and Big 10. It's like they're going to have somebody to play all the time. They're not going to be the SEC, like the ACC and the Big 12. They're not going to be able to fill their schedules with SEC teams, and Big 10 teams, and they're also not going to be able to fill it with the Valdosta States and stuff if they want to. So they're just going to end up playing a lot of games with each other, I guess is what I'm saying, whether it's the same conference or what. Like, they can go to the Big 12, but big whoop, What if they go to the Big 12 and Oregon State goes to the ACC? Like, it's going to be a relegation league. I hope they really are open to that and get to that level where they can do that, because if you're going to go this far, get Vanderbilt out and put a team that wants to compete, is how I feel about it.
I do think that if Florida State and Clemson get out first, I'm still not hearing great things about Clemson to the Big Ten, even though I was hearing a little bit more positive about that. A couple days ago, I really thought Clemson's destination was going to be the Big Ten. Now, not so much. I think they are, they're very well fitted in the SEC. I think that makes more sense. I don't know. It just seems weird to me unless. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to go back into that conversation. For me, I just think that when Florida State leaves, I do see Washington State and Oregon State getting an ACC invite. 100% I do.
Either or, Big 12 or ACC. It seems like they would be.
I don't think
dumb
they're big.
not to take them.
I don't think the Big 12. If the Big 12 wanted them, they would have already taken them. The Big 12 is now looking at the schools in the ACC, like Louisville.
There's a fool running the Big 12 then.
Yeah.
Because they're idiots. Because Oregon State's as good a football program as anything left in the ACC. I don't disagree with you. It's just like.
I agree.
Big 12 people, like, they just seem like they're real proud of that thing. Like, I don't see the teams. Oklahoma and Texas are gone. Like, Oregon State would be in your first tier if you brought them in. So why the fuck wouldn't you bring them in? Sorry, that just gets on my nerves, that whole narrative out there.
You're totally fine, and I agree with that. I think it's hard, I guess. I mean, they just took a bunch of Pac-12 schools, so I don't know why it would be an issue. But I think they want that East Coast thing going on. I do, and I think they want, they have West Virginia right now, West Virginia, Louisville. I think it's a good move for the Big 12 because Louisville is basketball, baseball, football. And their fan base is huge. Not that Oregon State isn't, or Washington State. We know those fan bases are absolutely in love. But West Coast teams, unfortunately, the ratings aren't great. And at the end of the day, we know that, you know, the
Better
the
than
sports,
Kansas. Better than Kansas.
look,
My point is, and I agree with you. I
I
don't think
agree
you're off
with
base
you.
one bit. I think we're on the same exact point, just kind of pointing at two different points, I guess. But my overarching view, what I can't escape is, no matter what happens, say Louisville and 3 other teams decide, okay, we're going to the Big 12. Like, they're going to have to lean on each other. So either the ACC explodes and all that's left in the Division One, non-Power Two, it's just going to be the Big 12, or
Yeah.
vice versa. The Big 12 explodes and it's just the ACC, or you have Big 12 versus ACC. Maybe it works better for the Big 12 to get 2 East Coast teams and the ACC to get 2 more West Coast teams. But at the same time, it's like you're going to have 5 California teams in the fucking Atlantic Coast Conference by adding Oregon State and whoever the other
Well,
one is out west.
I think that's where they messed up in the first place, because honestly, I think Oregon State and Washington State's programs are way more valuable than
I
Stanford
agree.
and Cal. No offense.
100%.
No offense here.
I think they were. I don't think they wanted to go to the ACC. Sorry for cutting you off. I know I get mad.
Oh, no. You're fine. You didn't cut me off. No, they did. They did not want to be left out. They wanted, I think it's so crazy that look, Stanford's a great program. I'm not trying to piss off the trees again, because they love coming after me. But
if Jim Harbaugh were there, I'd be pumped, but he's not.
Why? It's still always going to be a one-trick pony. It's never going to be relevant in anything other than maybe 1 year, 2 years. And they're a great academic school. Cool. Go to the freaking Ivy Leagues where people give a shit about that. What we care about right now is sports and, game day. Okay. That's what we care about. And you aren't good at any of those. So stop. Go to the Ivy Leagues. Promote your academics. Run over the Ivy Leagues in sports. They're pretty good at being run over. Okay? Go win you some titles. Do something else, because you're not winning them here.
For sure. Again, that phone line is going across the bottom of the screen if you have any questions. And speaking of games, what are we about? We're almost exactly 3 weeks away here on Easter Friday. Is it? What's the technical term? Good Friday. It's escaping me. Good Friday with Easter Sunday coming up, April 20th. So yeah, it's right at 3 weeks away. Spring game. Me and Jen will be in town. Chris Frazier, our buddy of Spear Addicts, CJ Wilson of Dope Talk, and James Coleman of Den Media Group are putting on their annual spring tailgate. I'll be there hanging out. Jen will be there hanging out. All kinds of NFL alumni, Florida State former players, coaches. You'll see recruits popping through there. You never know who you're going to get to meet, but you'll get to meet some really cool Noles. Maybe get an autograph, get a belly full of food. They usually have an open bar. I think they're going to have multiple choices of food. Everybody's kind of, the family, the platforms of everybody's kind of grown since last year. So I can only imagine how much fun it's going to be. So I think the tickets are $20 right now, and then go to $40 if you get them in the day of the game, something like that. So again, I'll put that link in the comments, but if not, get with James Coleman or Chris, and they'll get you hooked up with tickets for that, because it's going to be a lot of fun. Also CJ Wilson, of course. But yeah, I can't wait for the spring game. We've just had our first scrimmage in the books, in case people didn't know, and that would be our 5th practice, I believe, maybe 6th. I could have that mixed up. Actually, the 6th practice. But anyways, our first scrimmage was yesterday, and I think it's really funny, awesome. It's great. We sit here and we make predictions, and we don't pretend to know more than anybody out there or have crazy inside sources or anything. We love talking ball, and we talk to people that know ball. We have, this and that. And you talk about a guy like Malik Benson, you try to tell everybody, oh, he didn't get any targets from Alabama. He's this, he's that, he's a backup. We try to tell people, well, look at his quarterback. He had Jalen Monroe. The dude was running wide open all the time. Think of a guy like Ontario Wilson, 2 years ago. He could be that kind of guy for you, except for Ontario Wilson was he was not ever supposed to be a megastar. This guy was the number one JUCO player coming out last year. He was at Alabama. Like, they were trying to get him the ball. Can't help it the quarterback couldn't get to that read. And you had a dude who they looked at like their, best player on offense at that in that X wide receiver role that he needed. Like, but it's just funny. It's awesome. I love it. I love seeing everybody agreeing out there on Malik Benson. It just seems like that's kind of the narrative. That's kind of the consensus out there, that he really can get it done. I forget exactly whose tweet or a little clip of a video. I seen somebody was really hammering how Jalen Milroe just didn't get to that read, and just, he was really amazing if you watch the all 22. I wish I could give him credit. I just don't want to say the wrong person, but I couldn't agree with them anymore, that tweet that I saw. And I love that everybody's seeing that in person at the practices and going back and reviewing, because I think he can be, like I said, Ontario Wilson on steroids pretty much for this awesome offense. And also our guy, Cam Davis, the scrimmage, no different. You keep hearing about that dude. Like, it's like he looks like a guy that's getting ready for the draft, and he's a true freshman just out there freaking running dudes over all over the place.
It's really crazy. I want to see the kid in high school who was trying to block him. I really do. And I want to see his face on camera when they tell him, go do this. Because he's probably like, no, I'm good.
Yeah. We played, I say we, I wasn't on the team, but I went to Milton High School, class of 09. So they played Trent Richardson that year. And I won't say any names, but I'll just say there were some linebackers that straight up just belly flopped on the grass. It's like, by the time he had 350 yards and all the dudes are out, like, that was a tough deal there. So yeah, I feel the same way about. I bet his senior year was very similar. And as a quarterback, teams just had to see him every single play.
Who's stopping him when he's like? I don't get it. Wow, you hit the gene pool there, sir. And hats off to you. And you probably don't even have to work out, which is very, I'm very jealous of this. He was probably born with all these muscles. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I have no doubt he has a crazy work ethic, but yeah, he has that extra something genetically. There's no doubt. He's an absolute beast.
He's
and
just
I cannot
amazing.
wait to see him get after it. And as far as the wide receivers, another guy that you want to talk about, a freak, Hakeem Williams, like in 1 year, boy, and that's kind of a common theme around the channel, or not around the channel, around the team, that everybody was talking about the different weight gains. Everybody's trolling DJU for being 255 pounds, like he's not 6'4" and a giant human being. It's a beautiful time, man. This is the earliest, I think Norvell said this is the earliest they've ever had a scrimmage. I don't think necessarily as a team they're farther along with the offense or defense, given what we had coming back and the experience last year. But if you think back on how spring camps have been here since Mike Norvell has got here, there hasn't been enough depth, really. Like, a lot of the starters and even your first kind of, backups, you've got to be careful. They're not getting a ton of reps. And especially on the spring game day, it's more about some of the younger people. And even the game, the way Norvell runs it, it's not completely set up into two complete teams. Now, I don't know if he'll ever do that. Last year I thought we had the personnel, we probably could do that, but maybe he's just going to be a showcase. He's not going to have an actual game. But I can guarantee you this year, if they wanted to, hell yeah, you can split this team up into two good offensive lines and go out there and get work with the number one quarterback and the twos over here, the number one's offense and the number two defense, vice versa. It's something that hasn't been able to happen at Florida State in a long, long time. And it's kind of what you get across the board. Like, I don't know, like we can't pick who the absolute monsters are going to be, but the talent is so much deeper. Every kind of position that got replaced is with somebody of higher talent. Jalen Brown's name's popped up. The wide receiver we got from LSU, who's a true sophomore, just like Hakeem Williams. Juice Cryer is talking all the shit. Like, at practice on Twitter, he's as confident as they come. Nothing but great reports around, coming out of him. He's a transfer, but people don't realize, like, he's a transfer, but he was a true freshman. It was a situation where they would classify him now as a short-term transfer or whatever. Like, he committed to Northwestern, but like never made it through camp. He came straight to Florida State. He never played for Northwestern. So well ahead in his development. DJ Lundy's flying around out there. Sean Murphy is like doing way better than everybody thought. It's pretty much everything we said on the last show. It's just people reiterating it. Was there anything that stuck out to you from the different practice reports and stuff this week or comments?
No, I liked that the defense got a lot of praise. I think people were worried about that. But again, it's a scrimmage, so we'll just have to see how this goes. But I didn't really have that much doubt in the defense going forward. So, I think I guess the only thing that stuck out to me was maybe let's get some really, really high news on the wide receivers. I would love that.
Get some what now?
High news, like great news, like excellent news on the wide receivers. Yeah, now they are playing well, but I think, we'll see. I think we need to see how this goes.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The defense is ahead, but that's to be accepted. And it goes to the point I made. Okay, so defenses are always ahead this time of camp. And another thing you just heard me say, this is the earliest they've ever had a scrimmage.
Yep.
So you've got two new quarterbacks, really, because your backup in Brock Glenn, he just kind of got thrust in that position at the end of the year. So you've got Brock Glenn entering his first camp, even, as a backup. So, and DJU coming over from Oregon State, third school in 3 years, all this stuff. So I think them having this first, scrimmage at a certain time was just to kind of figure out, all right, when the bullets start flying, who's DJU going to look to? Who's Brock going to look to? What two offensive linemen are going to work together, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I'm with you. I would love to hear who's going to break out in that wide receiver room just because it's so deep. At first blush, here's the fun thing we do. We can kind of talk about who we think are going to be the starters. I think just best case scenario for me would be Hakeem Williams, Malik Benson, with Destin Hill in the slot. Like, I think that would be the best for the team. If those three guys end up being your go-tos, I think, that would be amazing. But that doesn't mean that Ja'Kai Douglas isn't going to get a lot of run in the slot. That doesn't mean if Portier stays, he's not going to get a run or have something to say about one of those outside positions if he can win it. That's not to say Jaylen Brown might be better than Hakeem. We don't even realize it yet. He's just getting here. I doubt it. I think Hakeem's an absolute freak. But I just think when you look at the ceilings and the ability to take the top off the defense that Benson provides, even to a higher level than what we had with Ontario Wilson a couple years ago, it could be scary. And DJU, not being, Tom Brady quite yet, give him some time. There's just a lot of guys. I didn't even mention Van Javius Jacobs. I didn't mention any of the freshman wide receivers you got coming in. There's a ton of talent there. And I see people talking about health. We've got enough talent to where losing a guy or two shouldn't kill you. And you hear James says this all the time. If you get down to your third string anything during the year, like, that's a problem. Like, only sometimes maybe Georgia, if they get down to their third string, it's somebody that could start somewhere else. But that's rare to have that. And in this day and age, you see with a guy like MJJ, you can't stockpile players, not getting stats just because anymore. Guys are going to come play. And I have no doubt the wide receivers. There's going to be somebody to break out. I've been loving what I hear. I've heard so soon, so early, but you're definitely right. Last year we had Keon and Johnny, and we knew exactly who the guys were, and it was like, okay, Johnny had a bad practice, so you kind of knew you knew this was going on. This year it's who's going to step up, who's going to be and they talk about it all the time. Who's going to be the one to show the consistency? So I gave you my three. Is there anybody in particular that you hope jumps in there? Do you agree pretty much, or what?
I mean, I agree with you. I think I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what you just said. Pretty much, yeah.
We also see people. I saw somebody said not enough defensive tackles to split into two teams. I would disagree. As far as practice sakes, I think we have enough bodies out there. When you get into the third row, that's where you kind of get in trouble. Now in spring, I will agree with you, actually, now that I think about it, because as we found out after practice the other day, or we've known for a while, But anyways, it was officially put out there. Joshua Farmer's out for spring. So yeah, that does hurt your defensive tackle depth, not having him there. But if he was theoretically healthy, you go pretty good two deep with Josh Farmer, Daryl Jackson, KJ Sampson, and Daniel Lyons. Also, Grady Kelly is that guy. In my opinion, Grady Kelly, Daniel Lyons are going to battle it out for that third defensive tackle position. I heard James say maybe Grady's, can get that third spot. I'll be interested in talking to him and different people that have got to see practice and how he's coming along, because I'm not excited about Grady like I was about Fisk, but I've also been proven wrong on guys by Norvell. I know, think about how people talked about Tatum Bethune when he came in. People were like, oh, he's not this athlete. He's not that. He's just got a ton of experience, all this stuff. That's why this. Okay, well, he took some major leaps and was pretty damn good at FSU. You don't hear any of that about Sean Murphy. All you heard about from Sean Murphy is, oh, if he's so good, why isn't he starting as a true sophomore? Well, I mean, it's tough to start as a true sophomore. But I have really, really high hopes on Sean Murphy. And I've said over and over again, I still think they bring in another linebacker, but we shall see on that one. Just excited, man. I mean, I could talk about spring practice all day long. I really just can't wait to see him get out there and play. I can't wait for the next scrimmage. Once things start to get a little tighter together, we start to get some ideas of who's stepping out. But right now, I'm just super excited. You see, like Pat Payton coming into practice all fired up, ribbing MJJ. You see the players walking in the next day with their head down because they know they're in for hell. It's fun stuff, man. I couldn't be happier to cover Florida State and Mike Norvell and what they've got going on. It makes our jobs easy. People can say we have rose-colored glasses, this or that, but I don't know. When some of the shit we start saying about him and about what they're doing turns out to be wrong, I will eat that crow and I'll say we were wrong. But it's as long as they can hold on to Norvell and keep this entire staff together, have Michael Alford, everybody on the same point, the board of trustees, all the way from the very top to the bottom, to have an entire university, everybody in sync on where they want to go, what they want to do as a football program. It's a beautiful thing, despite what the national media outlets are going to say. That talent is going to show up. It's going to show up in Ireland, and we've got the schedule to let this team mesh together. We got spring camp, fall camp, and also there's a portal. They're saying this is going to be the biggest portal period ever. I'm talking about the early one in 22, the early one in 23, the early one this year. They're saying this could be the biggest one yet. I don't buy it, just because of kind of how minuscule the previous ones were. Seems like you can get some real top-end talent here or there. A guy like Keon Coleman who says, okay, you fuckers didn't bring a quarterback in the spring, I'm out. Stuff like that. But I don't know. They're talking about teams being able to get 6-8 players. I know Miami has a wish list out there for 6-8 players. They don't need them. Just they're not the transfer school, but they take just as many. To what somebody was saying about
don't tell them that. Don't tell them that. They will call you crazy. They will call you a lunatic. Do not tell them those facts ever.
Yeah, Miami fans, man, they are hilarious.
Well, they're only internet located, so they don't have the ability to meet with each other and get their stories straight. Go watch the team play. That's always a hard thing for those weirdos to do. Yeah, Miami. Oh God, I can't.
Yeah, as far as us, I wouldn't mind another defensive tackle. I've seen a lot of people talk about that, and I concur. It's tough. It's hard to project defensive tackle. It's why it was hard to get so excited about Braden Fisk. Really, defensive line overall, but it's just. It's been beaten into me by Norvell and Papuchis and Odell Haggins. The guys they bring in from the portal pan out. It's just what happens. I get it's not 100%, and you have a guy like Gilbert Edmond that left, but the statistics tell me 2 out of the 3 of the defensive linemen we brought in are going to be good. And I seriously think Sione Lolohea is going to be able to help you at that tackle position, especially on third down. I think of a guy like DeMarcus Walker. You're going to be able to slide. Think you slide Lolohea in at tackle, and then you've got MJJ and Pat P on another side. and maybe Daryl Jackson in there at the other defensive tackle to take up 2 blocks. Like you have some real fun shit you can do. You can slide Daryl Jackson at the nose tackle and run a 3-down set, or like a 5 set down 5 linemen where you have Daryl in the middle, 2 tackles next to him, and then your 2 outside edges with Peyton and MJJ on the outside. There's all kind of fun shit you can do with this kind of group they have coming back. But yeah, I wouldn't mind another defensive tackle. That would make things that much better. And we know how hard it can be, like we saw in 2022 when both your starting tackles are dinged up, and all of a sudden it's like your second string is your first string, and you've got to be able to rotate in the third string. Defensive line, the backups don't get to chill. They don't come in when an injury happens. At Florida State, you've got to be able to run, 10 deep on the defensive line. If you count 4 deep at tackle, 5 deep at tackle, and 3-4 deep at defensive end. But defensive end, people aren't as worried on that one. We do have a pretty good bit of numbers there. I'm really happy with defensive end. But hell, if another great defensive end pops up, you can't have enough of those.
Well, I'm very high on Grady Kelly from Colorado State because I watched what he did against Colorado and it made me giggle. It made me laugh. I enjoyed every minute of it. Bring it here. He is just bringing his lunch pail to work type of guy. I love every minute of it. I think he's gonna do something. I mean, we're not talking. I don't know that we're talking like a starter or anything, but I think he's going to surprise you. Go back and watch that Colorado State game. Just go do it.
Hey, I absolutely hope you're correct. And like I said, the hit rate is pretty amazing with what they've done. Von Meyer Jr. says
it's his anger for me. I love every minute of it. I'm here for it. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Von Meyer Jr. says Fuller is going to have some fun this year. Yeah, I made 4 predictions on my Twitter the other day. I mentioned that on our show. I think I mentioned that on Voice of College Football. I'll go ahead and read those real quick before I forget. But yeah, one of those was about the defense. I think that Adam Fuller is going to have statistically his very best defense of his entire career at Florida State this year. The second one, I don't have to look it up. I can remember. The second one is that Marvin Jones Jr. or Patrick Payton is going to get 10+ sacks. So I truly believe that. Best statistical defense to date. We're going to have an end with 10+ sacks. DJU is going to have his best year in college football statistically as a college football. I think that's a given. And there's one more that I'm forgetting. What's the fourth one?
I love that one. Obviously. Because I'm not biased at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. I should be a journalist.
Okay, Alex Atkins' offensive line will pave the way for the most yards by running backs in Norvell's tenure. So we're going to have the best running game we've had since Norvell's been here, basically, in between the tackles, outside the tackles, like traditional run game, 2 running backs, as opposed to quarterback run and things of those nature. Again, the depth of the offensive line, as I talked about earlier, is just it's on a whole another level. News to this, ask if there's any word on the sanctions being overturned. I do not have anything for you on that, except for the fact that I do know that the NCAA has, like we talked about, it's kind of where we left it. They paused sanctions, but until we get closer to the season and when this shit takes effect, it's not really a priority right now, but we'll definitely get you informed if, the ACC or FSU files anything new in regards to this, or the NCAA or whatever. But I got nothing new on that besides what we let you guys know the last time.
I don't think they're going to get overturned. I don't even think they're going to press it. I don't see them even. I understand that the NCAA paused future punishments because Tennessee wanted to whine. So if you're in the SEC, you get to whine and you get your punishments taken away. If you're Florida State and you go 13-0, nobody gives a shit. So I'm letting you know, I don't think these get overturned at all. I think Tennessee gets moved off because Tennessee was about to get into some real trouble. They were about to get into some real trouble here. We're talking bowl bans. We're talking a lot of things because They were caught again, and they were already on probation, guys. That's why the SEC had to go and Tennessee had to go. And I'm proud of them. I'm glad they did it. I hate the NCAA, but it's only really sweet that SEC teams get away with this. I guarantee you, if this was Florida State already on probation, nobody would have given a shit. I just promise you that.
To be clear, the NCAA didn't budge. Tennessee sued the NCAA, and they decided then another school sued, then another school sued. Florida State worked with the NCAA.
Yeah.
They decided to work with them, and there has been a statement released by the school. The school, has said they are going to fight it. They are going to try to beat it. But as Jen alluded to, the NCAA doing the right thing. Yeah, right. I doubt it.
Yeah.
It's not going to get overturned. But who knows? We'll see what happens. Like I said, but we have nothing to report since the last time we talked about it. Hopefully, but I think there's going to be some concessions, but it's not going to get overturned and Florida State walks away scot-free. But as far as future enforcement on scholarships and shit like that, there may be something they can do. But yeah, like I said, nothing new.
No, I think, Florida State made a deal with the NCAA. I don't think you can go back on a deal. It's almost like in a court of law. You plead guilty, you pretty much give up all your rights to appeals, correct? So I think with Florida State agreeing to these terms with the NCAA, I don't think they're going to retroactively take them away. I think you're going to sit there and stick with it because you lay down with dogs, you get fleas.
Alrighty, guys. Well, we love you all.
Sorry.
It doesn't look like we have any questions coming in. We are ticking down here on about an hour and 15 minutes. I think we've covered just about everything. But we will give you guys till 1:15 on the clock. If anybody wants to call in, if you got any questions for me or Jen, now's the time, or forever hold your tongue. Boom. We get a super sticker from my guy, Mike Holly. He said, I don't have a comment. We're just going to throw it $5. We appreciate you, Mike.
Thank you.
And of course, happy Easter to all. I know I mentioned it was Easter. Happy Easter, everybody. Happy Good Friday, as Jen reminded me.
Mm-hmm.
The Greek Easter, and I'm going to get in trouble because I can't tell you the exact day, but the Greek Easter is like...
Then don't say it.
It's like a 10, 11 days on, something like that. It's a couple weeks after, so I'm going to have to get with my people for the Greek Easter. But we don't have the Easter bunny. They cook a goat. So it's a little different, but we do this thing where we knock eggs together. And like if your egg cracks, you lose.
I mean, you're not cooking the Easter bunny.
They want to know if there's going to be an Easter show. I didn't even think about that. You've got your baby, so we'll talk to Jen and we'll let you guys know. Who knows? Maybe we'll do a special one on.
I can do one in the afternoon as long as I do Easter egg hunting in the morning.
The babies come first. That is definitely. Easter was one of my favorite ones as a kid. I loved running around and hunting for eggs.
I don't know. I don't know. It always. I'm not going to go into it.
Maybe it's a boys thing. The girls just like, you're gonna make me run around and sweat and get dirty to get my
in my dress and
exactly.
in my nice shoes, and then you want me to take a nice picture. What are we doing here?
We just want to go fight over the eggs. But we love you guys. Go Florida State. We can't wait to see you guys soon. And I guess we will see you tentatively Easter evening. We're going to come and spend some time with you guys. Who knows what will happen between here and then. But we'll just leave you guys with the theme music, and we will catch you guys next time.
Good night.